Hi guys, in this video we're going to be looking at a mock test from Chilwell Driving Test Centre, and we're going to start right outside the test centre entrance. So the driveway on the left there is the way into Chilwell Driving Test Centre, and that's where you'll be coming out when you start your test. When we move off, of course, the examiners want to see you check your blind spots before you pull away, just to ensure you're safe before you move out into any new road like this. At the traffic lights, we will be taking a right turn onto the main road. Now, with these traffic lights, it can be quite awkward if you've got an oncoming vehicle turning right or going straight ahead as well. One of my previous videos, you see a pupil who gets caught out by that. I'll link that in the top at the moment. Whenever we're dealing with traffic lights, of course, just keep your eyes moving and make sure you're checking the sides for any blue light vehicles, cyclists, or vehicles that just haven't responded to the change in traffic lights. We get a nice clear run across here with no oncoming traffic to give way to, and the pupil beautifully lines up in the left-hand lane there, ready to carry on down the road. The left-hand position is where we should always aim for unless we know different. So if we were going to be taking a right turn, you'd naturally want to be in that right-hand lane. So for your normal driving, take up the left-hand position unless you know differently. As you can see, the pupil progresses really well along this road, getting a speed up to about 26 miles an hour before reaching the traffic lights ahead. As we make way through this junction with the lane next to us, it's well worth keeping an eye on that right-hand mirror. That way, if you've got anyone who may cause you a problem if the lanes merge ahead, you can prepare for them nice and early and get yourself in a good defensive position, slowing down if you need to, and just allowing them to pass so you keep yourself nice and safe as those lanes close in together. Just up ahead, we're going to be taking a left towards Beeston. The direction sign's just on the left here, and where the arrows mark out here, we slip over to that left-hand lane, and then just ahead, you'll see the car in front of us making the way around that bend. Be very careful as you come around this bend because it's a very tight corner. It comes around to the left and then sharply to the right. So even though it does enter into a 40-mile-an-hour zone, you definitely don't want to be doing 40 as you come into a corner like that. Along this road, I'm going to ask my people to park up on the left. You'll get asked to do this several times on your driving test. All the examiners are looking for is that you pick a safe place to pull over, that you tuck in nice and tight to the curb, and that when you move away again, you check your blind spot and you're moving into a safe gap. Along this road in particular, there's quite a lot of potholes, so you'll notice the pupil stays at around 20 to 25 miles an hour. She doesn't pick up her speed any more than that. I think the decision to travel at that speed was pretty reasonable here. If she'd have progressed up to 40 miles an hour, then the condition of the road would have made it very uncomfortable and potentially done harm to the car. Mini roundabout, we're going to the second exit straight. Some examiners may say right, so if they say right, they want to see you signal right. If they say ahead, then don't worry about the signals. And just make sure you give way to traffic on the right before crossing, of course. Really nice job by my pupil there, spotting the gap and keeping it moving. As we follow the road ahead, there's a number of parked cars on the left and the oncoming cars. You can see the pupil reducing her speed just to get through that gap a little more safely. If you're traveling through gaps like that where you're not entirely sure of the space, then you do want to reduce your speed and be prepared to wait for the oncoming cars to pass. Don't squeeze through the gaps if you're not sure you have the space. This little section here catches a few people out. You notice the pupil slowing down as she passes the 20-mile-an-hour sign, and it's just for this short section of road. Once we pass these traffic lights, you'll see the 30-mile-an-hour sign, and we can pick it back up again. Just be very attentive towards those road signs. If you miss a change in speed, then potentially you're going to end up going either too slow or too fast for the road, and that could result in you failing your test. So really good job there from the pupil, responds to those signs absolutely perfectly. Whenever you're traveling on tram lines like this as well, it's always good advice to sit just off of the tram lines. Try not to have it so your wheels are on those rails, because that reduces your grip, particularly in the wet conditions. Just notice the sign on the left here. It says all through traffic to the right, and that's the broader arrow on the direction. So the road bends to the right, and the road in front of us becomes trams only, with a small road to the left which is for local traffic. So we're going to follow the road around, and now we're at the lights. You can see those markings telling you how the road leads around to the right. The green light gives you a clear run to go through, and of course following it around and building your speed up as you move away from those lights. I've got a few sets of traffic lights up ahead, and we are continuing straight ahead at all of them. It's really important to watch your road markings and signs as you approach these junctions. And whilst the pupil is a little bit far back from the line here, I'm not worried about it. I'm not going to mark it because she's not so far back it's going to cause any real issue to the cars behind. If she was further back, then absolutely I would mark this as a fault, or if she overshot the line, I'd mark it as a fault. But I think it's a little bit borderline, but to mark it would be a bit petty in my opinion. As we approach the next set of lights, just notice the markings on the left saying tram only, and the solid white lines separating you from that lane. Of course, solid white lines mean do not cross unless you absolutely have to, and this little yellow post on left with the arrow is telling you where to put the car. Keep right is what that's telling you. So we definitely don't want to go into that left hand lane. That is purely for the trams. We are not a tram. Notice those filter lights as well, how the right hand turn has to wait while we progress, and the oncoming cars make their way through as well. Up ahead, see the sign on the left as well. You can see the pupil sits in the right hand lane because we're continuing straight, the left hand lane for left only. Up ahead we've got a few more signs, and the road is going to tell us that we can only go left here, trams only straight ahead. You'll be expected to spot those signs and follow them like the pupil did here. If you fail to follow them and you try to go straight ahead through that tram line, you will fail your test, so watch out for those signs. Up ahead we're coming to a traffic light junction where the pupil is turning right. It is a one-way street, so we can position closer to the right-hand side. We don't have to worry as much about incoming traffic, but at the end of the road we can go left or right, so the signal is necessary in my opinion to tell the cars behind what we're doing, and that of course is something that my pupil missed on this occasion, so it's got to go down as a driver fault. At these traffic lights, notice the lanes bringing us up, the left for straight and the right for right, and then filter lights again separating the flow of traffic. So you've got to pay attention to your markings, your lines based on your direction. If the examiner says nothing, look for the road straight ahead and follow that. You see the pupil making really nice progress up here. We're at 26 miles an hour as we come past the bike, slow enough to give us a little bit more thinking time, but quick enough to be making good progress, and that's absolutely spot on here. At the roundabout here, we'll be taking a left turn. As we come into it, it does open out into 2 lanes, and we have a 40-mile-an-hour sign, so we want to be very aware of that as we make our way around the curve, giving way to the right as you normally do on a roundabout, and then following that curve round to the left. Notice as we leave the roundabout, we've got the lights, and immediately there we've got a 30-mile-an-hour sign again. So you've got to really pay attention to those speed changes. If you miss that 30 sign and you start picking up your speed, there is a speed camera ahead, the examiner will intervene and you will fail your test. So make sure you're looking up and ahead for those speed signs. With the road ahead being so open and no parked cars or problems up ahead, we can sit in that left-hand lane all the way up. If there are parked cars on the left, of course, look ahead, spot them early, check those mirrors, and tell people you want to move out around them in good time. Plan well ahead because there's often parked cars along this road. If you leave it to the last minute, you're going to run out of room and then you're going to have a problem, which you could have avoided just by planning ahead a little bit better. Up ahead, we're approaching Priory Island, and my pupil needs to go straight ahead, second exit. As we approach this roundabout, I have informed her that we need to use the second lane. Now, the examiners may not tell you that information and might wait for you to spot the markings instead. As we get a little bit closer, you'll see what I mean by those markings. The center arrow says straight and left. The left-hand arrow says left only. So what we don't want to be doing is getting in that left-hand lane when we want to go straight ahead. We want to be out in lane 2 or lane 3 to go straight ahead. Lane 2 and 3, as we go across the roundabout, will then become lane 1 and 2 on the way out of the roundabout. And of course, the ideal there is to be on the left when we leave that roundabout. So we're in a perfect position here. All we need to do as we go forward is keep an eye on those mirrors. The pupil does a wonderful job of that, keeps in her lane perfectly as we go across the roundabout. Do be aware as well that there's lights at all 4 entries on this roundabout, so as you go around you can easily get caught out by the lights on the way around the roundabout if you're not paying attention to them. So keep your eyes up and ahead and watch out for those lights changing, particularly if they've been green for quite a while. Just a little way ahead, you're going to see a direction sign, and it tells us that the right hand lane becomes right only. So you've got to make sure you're in the correct position for where you're going and doing it in good time. If you do find yourself in the wrong lane, check your mirrors, signal if it's safe, and change position. If it's not safe, just go where you're pointing. So if you find yourself in that right hand lane, for example, and you can't move left because it's too busy, just take that right turn. As long as you do it safely, you will not get faulted on your test. And it's better to be safe and go the wrong way than it would be to forcibly go the right way and put people at risk. At the roundabout, we're going to be taking a left first exit, and just like all the other junctions, we need to be making sure we pay attention to the road we're going into, looking out for speed changes or hazards that could affect our path or our speed. We've got to really watch the right side for our openings as well. See the white car waiting, the other car coming round. So it's just choosing a nice gap to flow through. Notice the 20 sign on the left there. The pupil does a wonderful job here of maintaining a really good pace through that roundabout and then holding back as we enter that 20 zone, not letting that speed creep over the limit. Coming through Bramcote here, you can see all the parked cars on the left as well. These little car park areas are quite risky ones because you can get people sticking their nose out into the road before they can even see what's coming. You also get a lot of pedestrian activity during the day, hence that lowered speed limit. So keep your speed down, keep your eyes moving, and just be ready for any pedestrians or cars that may cause you an issue as you make your way down this road. If you notice the van up ahead with its door open and the car on the right, this could create quite a bottleneck if we've got oncoming vehicles. This pupil does a fantastic job here, just lowering her speed, covering the mirrors and making her way through that gap nice and safely without compromising too much momentum as well. So it's all about that balance of maintaining good progress but also being cautious where you need to. Back into a 30-mile-an-hour zone, and just up ahead I'm going to get my pupil to pull over and do a hill start. This is not a pleasant place to do it because it's often quite busy, and my pupil certainly felt that pressure when we did this one. So she's pulled over really nicely, got the car tucked into the curb really tight, and that allows cars to pass by nice and safely. But when we move away, she unfortunately left the car in park before trying to pull away. It doesn't result in a problem as such, but it's got to go down as a control fault. As we're coming up the hill here, of course, we've got a few side roads, a few bends and some parked cars. So it's just a case of balancing your speed again, not too fast up here. We don't want to be pushing right up to 30 miles an hour where we've got hazards like this. We want to be keeping it nice and comfortable. You can see the pupil keeping it sort of mid-20s, about 26 mile an hour there. And that's absolutely spot on for these conditions. As we approach the end of the road, we've got a set of traffic lights, and this is one of the junctions where you can use both lanes to turn right. So if we use the left lane to turn right, we're going to finish on the left-hand lane, which is again at that ideal position for where we're going next. Again, the pupil does a wonderful job coming around here, keeping a really nice position. The mirrors are covered, the right signal's on, and we go all the way out to that left-hand lane, and that is absolutely perfect for that junction. Be mindful of this crossing immediately after the turn. If that is in use, then we need to be able to spot that and hold back from it when we come around that corner. We're just approaching Bramcote Island now from the A52, going straight ahead towards Derby, which is also the A52. Now, the road does curve to the left quite sharply as you get to the junction, so my advice is always to slow down and keep it around 26 mile an hour when you get there. If you're going much faster than that, it's going to cause you issues not only for your control but also for the visibility of cars coming out from Town Street, which is on the left as you come around that curve. We want to be slowing down and defensive as we come around there. The pupil was a little bit late to do that, keeping the speed a little bit fast initially and just tapping the brakes as we got to the corner. So a little bit lumpy on the controls, but recovered quite nicely. And that's why it's going to go down as a driver fault on that occasion. As we travel down the dual carriageway, it's worth keeping in mind it is a 70 mile an hour road. The national speed limit is 70, where we've got the barriers in the centre and we're separated from the oncoming traffic. Whilst it is legal to do 70, it may not be safe to do 70, so you've got to balance your speed with what you can see ahead. The pupil's sitting around 50 mile an hour here. Because of the cars ahead, that's absolutely fine. I don't tend to encourage people to overtake on this road as well, just because we're only going to be on here for a short while, and not far ahead the speed lowers to 40 anyway. If you're in the right hand lane in the middle of overtaking someone and then have to slow down to 40, good odds are they're not going to slow down as much and you're going to get stuck in that outer lane. We've got our warning about queues likely there, and then just on the right you'll see the 40-mile-an-hour limit, and on the road as well, so there's no excuse for missing this. We want to get that speed down. You can see the pupil here does a really nice job. At the roundabout, we're going to be taking the second exit, which is Long Eaton, the B6003. So as we approach this, you'll see more signs telling you what lane to use. The directions here tell us to keep in the left-hand lane, and then as we get to the next set of signs, it says to keep in again that left-hand lane. The left-hand lane becomes an additional lane on the left of us here, so our lane becomes lane 2. So we've got to do our mirrors and signal and shuffle over into that left side before getting to the roundabout. Because we're going second exit, we then need to lose that signal before we enter the roundabout. So at this point, cancelling the signal is absolutely perfect. If we left that signal on, then as we enter the roundabout, people are potentially going to think you're going into the garden centre. So if someone's coming out of there, they're going to pull out on you thinking you're turning in, and that's going to be a high risk scenario, so you're going to get a serious or dangerous fault straight away. As you can see, there is a car waiting to pull out as well, so if we had a left signal on, they could easily misinterpret what we're doing and pull across us. Entering a 30 zone as we leave the roundabout here, and we've got our sign here for the tram stop on the left, a very common place for the examiners to come and do forward or reverse bay parking. So I'm going to do just that, telling my pupil to go into the car park, taking a left turn at these traffic lights. We're then going to go right at the mini roundabout, third exit in the car park. As we come into the car park, these new speed ramps are really awkward to hit. We want to go over these very slowly, less than 5 miles an hour if we can, because of how steep they are. If you hit them harder than that, you're going to potentially do damage to your car, such as the suspension, the track and the tyres, and that kind of risk can often be recorded as a serious fault when you're doing your driving test. Not to mention when you're driving your own car, you're going to rack up those repair bills. As we make our way into the car park, I'm going to ask my pupil to drive forwards into any parking space. There's a really good trick for this, and the answer is don't look down at the bay. You want to look up through the bay and drive into it as if you're going to go straight out the other side. Notice that silver Jaguar on the right. This is a perfect target car to use, and my pupil does this beautifully, aiming at the back of the car to line up behind it rather than looking at the space itself that she's driving into, and this helps her align the car absolutely perfectly in those lines. Once you get into the space, just double check that you are in the lines. If you're not in the lines, you can always correct it by shuffling back out and then bringing the car forward again. As long as all 4 wheels are in the line when you finish the maneuver, it's absolutely fine and you'll pass. The reversing part of the maneuver, then the examiners want to see lots and lots of shoulder checks, checking over both sides frequently and steering effectively to where you want to go. So I'm going to get my pupil to steer left as we come out the space, ready to go back out towards that exit. Absolutely faultless maneuver here. The trick with these is take your time, don't rush, and if you're struggling, pause and look around and take a little bit of time just to process what you need to do next and how you're going to get the car where you want it next. Once we get far enough back to drive away, just like this, we can move on. This is an absolutely brilliant example of how to do this maneuver without picking up any faults. So well done to this pupil. Absolutely spot on maneuver there. Again, as we're leaving the car park, be very mindful of those speed ramps. Slow yourself right down and go over those bumps as smoothly as you can. That way you're going to keep yourself calm, you're going to keep the examiner relaxed, and that gives you the better chance of passing your test. As we leave the car park here, we're going to be taking a left at the traffic lights. You can see the pupil aligns really well in that left-hand lane. Unfortunately, she does put a signal on very late for this one, not switching the signal on until she's right up to the red car. So I want to see the signals a little bit earlier than that, ideally before we take up that left-hand position, so people know we intend to take up that left-hand position. Once you're in that left-hand lane, it's pretty obvious where you're going, so the signal becomes a little bit redundant. So we want the signal in place before it becomes obvious what we're doing. All of the greenery on this road often persuades people to think that the speed limit is a bit higher. It is 30 mile an hour still down this road, and you can see my pupils sitting at around 26 mile an hour there, which is absolutely spot on for this. We don't want to be picking up that speed unless the speed limits are clearly posted as being higher. So where you're in built-up areas and there's no speed limit reminders, it's typically going to be 30 mile an hour. Down the hill here, just got to make sure we cover those brakes. Again, the pupil keeps the speed under really good control. You can see the speed flickering around 26 mile an hour there, and that's absolutely spot on. We're keeping a good following space on the red car as well, and that just allows us to keep safe if the red car does anything unexpected, like stop suddenly or queues up like it has. Just a little further, we're going to be taking a right turn, and my pupil is a little bit slow to progress into this. We can see on the right here, the road is really clear, there's no oncoming traffic, and the pupil just slows down a little bit more than I thought was necessary. That causes the cars behind to have to slow just that a little bit more than they need to. It wasn't to the point I felt it was worth a serious risk, just enough to be registered as a driver fault. So be very careful of that. If you've got a clear path into a road, get yourself moving and keep that progress up. Just up ahead, we've got a few parked cars on either side, and you can see the pupil slowing down really early and pulling in behind one of the parked cars. This is a great example of defensive driving. The pupil's not certain about the space, so she takes the defensive approach and gets ready to stop, allowing the other car to do what they need to do before she takes the gap. Before taking the gap, there's really good mirror use as well, so I'm happy to not put any faults down there at all. Just a little ahead, we get a similar situation where there's a parked car on both sides, and that means that neither us or the oncoming has priority in that situation, so the pupil takes the defensive option and lets them pass first, and that's absolutely perfect. We're pulling up on the left here, and you'll notice that my pupil stops with the front end hanging over a driveway. If you block a driveway, it's not going to fail you your test, but it is going to pick you up a driver fault, and if you keep doing it, of course, the examiners will record a repeated fault, which then becomes a serious fault. So be very careful about where you pull over, try and avoid driveways, line up with the gaps between the driveways instead, and then when you move on, don't forget that right shoulder check, the blind spot check, and that's going to reduce the odds of you picking up driver faults for things you can easily avoid. At the end of the road, we're taking a left turn. It's a really tight junction, so you can see the pupil slowing right down. We've got the van on the left here as well, which is going to push us out into the oncoming traffic. So we've got to make sure that's clear before we go around it. And the pupil makes a fantastic job of getting on with that safely and then progressing up to the traffic lights to continue straight ahead. As the pupil comes along here, she's very aware of the oncoming cars and how that restricts our view of people coming out of Tesco. You can see a car waiting to come out there actually as well, the blue car. So passing junctions like that, it's very important to watch those gaps and not just steam through at full speed. Make sure you're reducing your speed and giving yourself more time to react to anyone coming out. Another blue car there coming out. You'll see the pupil sitting just shy of the speed limit as we're going along this road, hovering around 26 mile an hour, which is absolutely perfect. It shows an awareness of the potential risks of cars coming out, but also an ability to progress through that situation confidently too. We're getting very near to Chilwell Test Centre again and the end of this mock test. So I'm going to take this opportunity to say thank you ever so much for watching the video. Please, if you find it useful, like, share and subscribe, and I'll keep trying to put more of these videos up for you to help you prepare for your own driving test. I've been getting a lot of positive feedback on these videos and it's so good to hear that they are helping people prepare. So please do leave a comment if it's helping you prepare, and do like and share and subscribe. Up ahead, we're going to be taking a right at the roundabout third exit. As we approach the roundabout, you'll notice it's got two curbs. It's got the lowered curb with the white markings, and then of course the main higher curb in the middle where the signs and grass are. We want to avoid both of those and go around the outer part of the roundabout. That centre part is not for us to drive on, it's for large vehicles if they need it, for the trailers of HGVs to cut across if they're coming around. As we leave the roundabout, we're going to be turning left at the traffic light. This one catches a few people out because the filter light is not very obvious if you're at the front of the queue. We can see the traffic light on the left and the extra filter light. The car at the front may find that difficult to see because of how close it is to them. So there's a single light on the far side of the junction that you need to keep an eye out for. And this is why it's so important to pay attention to what you're going up to. If you miss that the filter light on the left is there and you start looking to the right because you can see that light a bit easier, you're going to miss that filter light completely, and then you're going to get marked serious fault for not responding to the traffic light when it changes. The car at the front demonstrates that really nicely by not responding when the light changes. Don't get yourself caught out by that, and just be very aware of that filter light that's on its own, which you'll see on the far side of the junction as we make the turn. As we head back to the test centre, I'm going to tell my pupil to turn right at the next traffic light. Now the cue there, of course, is we need to move lanes. Whenever you're changing lanes, we want to maintain our speed, check the mirrors, flick the signal on, and find a safe gap to move. If we don't have a safe gap to move, then of course we can adapt the speed. I'm going to mark a fault here for the right turn at these traffic lights. Notice the lines on the left and how that line splits into two. My pupil unfortunately crosses the first of those lines, and it can put us at high risk if we go over that second line especially. It was a little uncomfortable, but I didn't think it was enough to be recorded as a serious fault because at no point was the pupil steering left towards the car. She just didn't lean right enough. So on those right turns, make sure you tuck right in to that curbside. That brings this mock test to an end. Again, thank you ever so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment, and I'll try and put more of these videos out as I can. Thank you again, and God bless.